The room went quiet when Daniel's parents gave me a contract and said, "Sign this. Everything you own now belongs to the family." Daniel smiled and said, "It's just a formality, babe." I leaned back and smiled. "Then you'll love what's in my safe deposit box." Their smiles disappeared as my lawyer walked in. I met Daniel 6 years ago in Chicago. I was in my late 20s, focused on building my career in real estate. I flipped houses, made smart investments, and built a stable, comfortable life. Daniel seemed wealthy and confident. He wore designer clothes and had all the newest gadgets. His parents, William and Eleanor, acted like they were from old money. Their huge house was filled with antiques and family portraits. But something always felt off. They made comments like, "You're lucky to join our family," and, "You must be happy to have this kind of stability." It felt like they assumed I needed their help. Daniel had red flags too. He borrowed money and didn't pay it back. He once asked me to put my name on a house for tax reasons. I said no, but I let a lot of things slide. Then came the dinner at his parents' house. We'd been married for 2 years. Family dinners weren't unusual, but that night felt strange. His parents looked smug, and Daniel seemed excited. Halfway through the meal, William handed me a thick contract. "We're thinking about the future," Eleanor said. "This will help keep the family strong." I looked at the contract. They wanted me to sign over everything, my savings, investments, properties, into a family trust that they controlled. My stomach dropped. "It's just a formality, babe," Daniel repeated. I looked at him. He expected me to just agree. Instead, I smiled. "Then you'll love what's in my safe deposit box." Everyone froze. Daniel's smile faded. Eleanor looked nervous. William clenched his jaw. Then my lawyer walked in. Eleanor tried to dismiss her, but my lawyer ignored her, read the contract, and laughed. "This is clear financial manipulation." She explained that if I signed, they could take all my money and sell my properties, and I wouldn't be able to stop them. Eleanor tried to defend it, calling it a matter of trust, but my lawyer pointed out the fine print. They'd have full control, and I'd have none. Daniel stood up angrily. "Why are you doing this?" "You just tried to steal everything from me," I said calmly. Eleanor acted sweet and innocent, saying they were just trying to protect me. I didn't respond. William got impatient. "Let's be adults and move on." I couldn't help but laugh. Like adults who try to steal from family? Then Eleanor said something shocking. "I guess you're not interested in the inheritance, then?" My head snapped toward her. "Inheritance?" Daniel shot her a warning look, but it was too late. "Oh, didn't he tell you?" she said. "His grandfather's estate in Rhode Island, the real family wealth." My lawyer and I realized, this wasn't just about my money, it was about theirs too. Eleanor hinted that if I didn't play along, I wouldn't get a share of the inheritance. But I wasn't tempted. I saw what they were doing. They'd always taken what didn't belong to them, and Daniel had hidden this from me. "Were you ever going to tell me?" I asked him. "I was waiting for the right time," he said. "Right for you," I replied. We left without another word. In the car, my lawyer said, "They were after more than your money." I nodded. "What are the chances Daniel has debt?" She looked at me. "You think he's hiding something?" "I know he is." The next day, I hired a private investigator to dig into Daniel's past, his finances, credit, and business dealings. What he found was worse than I expected. Daniel was deep in debt, maxed out credit cards, loans, and even a business loan in my name without my permission. I was furious. That night, I confronted him. "How long have you been stealing from me?" He looked shocked. "What are you talking about?" I threw the papers onto the table. "You took out a loan in my name, hid your debt, lied to me, and you wanted me to sign everything over so you could fix your mess?" For the first time, Daniel didn't deny it. Instead, he did something worse. He laughed. A cold, bitter laugh. "You were always so careful," he said, shaking his head. "I thought you'd understand that we needed to think about the future, but you just don't get it, do you?" My chest tightened. This was his plan all along. He looked at me with a blank expression. "You have no idea what you've just started." I stepped back. "Are you threatening me, Daniel?" He didn't answer. He just grabbed his coat and walked out. I stood there, fists clenched. I wasn't scared, I was angry. If he thought this was over, he was wrong. That night, I barely slept. My mind raced, piecing together everything, every lie, every red flag. He hadn't just betrayed me, he had been planning this for a long time. The next morning, my phone buzzed. "Teresa, you need to come to my office, now." I could hear the urgency in her voice. Without asking questions, I grabbed my keys and drove over. When I walked in, she was waiting with a file on her desk. "You're not going to like this," she warned, pushing the file toward me. I opened it, and my stomach dropped. There was another woman, actually, two. Daniel wasn't just lying about money, he was lying about everything. "Meet Lisa and Hannah," Teresa said, pointing to two photos of women, both younger than me, both beautiful. Lisa was with him 2 years ago, he promised to marry her, took out a loan in her name, and drained her savings before disappearing. My stomach twisted. Hannah was last year, same story, but he never actually broke up with her. I stared at the pictures, trying to process what I was hearing. "So he was cheating?" I asked. Teresa nodded. "Yes, but here's the kicker." She flipped to another document. "He was engaged to Hannah." I blinked. "What?" "Yeah," Teresa said, "he proposed, gave her a ring, and planned a wedding. She thinks they're getting married in 6 weeks. My mouth went dry. "So he was married to me, engaged to someone else, and scamming both of us?" Teresa sighed. "Pretty much. And that's when it hit me, the Rhode Island estate. The inheritance his family kept talking about. Daniel needed a wife on paper to access it. That's why he kept me around. That's why he pushed for the trust. He wasn't just trying to steal my money, he was trying to replace me before I figured it out." I needed to talk to Hannah. The next day, Teresa set up a private meeting at a coffee shop. When Hannah walked in, she was practically glowing. She thought she had a fiancé. She had no idea she was Daniel's next target. I introduced myself. The moment I mentioned Daniel's name, her face changed. "How do you know him?" she asked, suddenly defensive. "Because he's my husband." "That's not possible." I placed my wedding ring on the table. Hannah's hand shook as she pulled out her ring and placed it beside mine, exactly the same. That's when she started crying. She told me everything. Daniel had promised her he was getting an inheritance but needed to be married to secure it. He promised a life of luxury in Europe once everything was settled. He had even convinced her to give him her savings. I clenched my fists. "Do you still have contact with him?" She nodded, wiping her tears. "He's supposed to take me to meet his family this weekend." I took a deep breath. "We're going to crash that little reunion." Hannah agreed to go along with the plan. We didn't tell Daniel we knew. Instead, she kept playing the part of the excited fiancé, texting him and keeping the engagement moving forward. Meanwhile, I worked behind the scenes. I hired a forensic accountant to dig into Daniel's finances. It turned out he had a hidden offshore account where he'd been moving money. The debts I found earlier were just the start. Then, I looked into his parents. The Rhode Island estate wasn't legally theirs yet. The probate process was messy, and they needed a stable heir to gain control. A stable, married heir. Daniel was supposed to be that person, but now, I had everything I needed to destroy his plan. The night of the family dinner came quickly. Daniel thought he was bringing his naive fiancée to meet his loving parents. Instead, he was about to get the shock of his life. Hannah and I arrived together. I walked in first. Daniel's parents were already seated at the grand dining table, sipping wine like royalty. Eleanor's face twisted in confusion when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" she snapped. I smiled. I wouldn't miss family night for anything. Daniel walked in behind me, arm in arm with Hannah. He froze, his face drained of color, panic settling in as he searched for a way out. "Babe," he said, forcing a smile at Hannah, "why is she here?" Hannah crossed her arms. "You tell me." Silence. His mother stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. I won't have this drama at my table." I laughed. "Oh, trust me, you'll want to hear this." I turned to Teresa, who was standing quietly by the doorway. "Would you like to begin?" She stepped forward and pulled out her files. "Let's start with fraud," she said, flipping to the first page, "and then we'll get to bigamy." The room erupted. Eleanor gasped. William slammed his glass down. Hannah threw her engagement ring at Daniel. Daniel just sat there, staring at me with pure, unfiltered hatred. He knew I had destroyed him. And the best part? I wasn't finished yet. Silence filled the room, not the kind of silence where people are thinking, but the kind before a bomb goes off. Daniel gripped the table so hard his knuckles turned white. His mother's face twisted in horror and fury. her mouth opening and closing like she wanted to scream but couldn't find the words. His father just stared ahead, the weight of everything sinking in. Fraud? Eleanor spat, regaining her voice. This is absurd. Where did you even get these ridiculous claims? Teresa, calm as ever, placed a thick folder on the table and slid it toward them. It's all in there, she said simply. Bank records, loan documents, forged signatures, and she reached for another paper. Proof that Daniel took out a business loan under his wife's name without her knowledge. That alone is a felony. Daniel flinched. Eleanor slammed her hand on the table. This is a family matter, she snapped. No, I said, my voice steady. This stopped being a family matter the moment you tried to steal from me. This is a legal matter now. Hannah spoke up. And what about the bigamy? She demanded, because last time I checked, I was engaged to a single man, not some lying, married scam artist. Daniel stood up. Hannah, he said, trying to stay calm, I can explain. She laughed bitterly. Oh, I'd love to hear this. He exhaled, running his hand through his hair. Okay, fine, he muttered. Yes, I was seeing you while still married, but it wasn't what you think. He gestured at me without looking. My marriage to her was over long ago. We were just dragging things out. I scoffed. Dragging things out? You tried to trick me into signing over my entire net worth. Sounds pretty active to me. Hannah's eyes narrowed. So everything you told me was a lie? The future? The wedding? Her voice broke. You told me I was the one. For a moment, something flickered in Daniel's eyes. Regret. Panic. It was hard to tell. I meant it, he said. I wanted us to have a future. Hannah. While you were still married? She snapped. No answer. Eleanor, still fuming, turned to me. You set this up, she accused. You're trying to ruin us. I laughed. Ruin you? You did that yourselves. I just put the truth on display. Daniel, quiet for too long, finally spoke. You think you've won, he said, his voice low. Everyone turned to look at him. He wasn't panicked anymore, he was angry. You act like you're the victim here, he growled, eyes locked on me. But let's be honest, this was always about power for you. You liked feeling superior. You liked keeping everything locked away. So I had to come to you for money. I raised an eyebrow. That's an interesting way to describe me protecting my finances from a compulsive liar. His nostrils flared. You never trusted me. You never gave me a reason to. I was your husband, he exploded, slamming his fist onto the table so hard the glasses rattled. You were supposed to stand by me, not turn on me like this. Hannah took a step back. Eleanor looked shaken. William, for the first time that night, spoke. Sit down, he ordered. His voice was quiet, but the authority in it was unmistakable. Daniel hesitated, his chest rising and falling rapidly. Then slowly, he sank back into his chair. Teresa cleared her throat. Since emotions are high, let's cut to the chase, she said, flipping through her notes. She held up a document. Hannah has already reported the fraud regarding the money taken from her. That's one charge against you, Daniel. His jaw clenched. Second, Teresa continued, we've already spoken to law enforcement about the fraudulent business loan, and considering the forged signature, that's another charge. Eleanor gasped. You went to the police? Of course, I said, staring directly at Daniel. Did you really think I was just going to let you walk away? His hands curled into fists. Third, Teresa went on, completely unfazed. The Rhode Island estate, that inheritance you were banking on, it seems probate. Court has some interesting information about how deep in debt this family really is. William's head snapped up. What are you talking about? Teresa smiled. Oh, you didn't know? Your assets are frozen. The air shifted. Eleanor's face drained of color. No, that's not possible. It is, Teresa said, her tone matter of fact. Turns out, the real reason you wanted my client to sign everything into a family trust was because you needed her money to pay off your debts. Eleanor shot up from her seat. This is a lie, but the way her voice cracked, she knew. William knew. Daniel knew. They were done. Eleanor was the first to break. She turned to Daniel, her voice sharp, her eyes burning with fury. You idiot, she hissed. You had one job. You were supposed to make this work, and now we're ruined. Daniel flinched. Don't put this all on me, he snapped. This was your plan just as much as mine. And you were supposed to execute it, she screeched. William rubbed his temples, looking 10 years older. Hannah, shaking, turned to me. I want him arrested. Don't worry, I said, it's already in motion. Daniel's head snapped toward me. You wouldn't. I met his stare, unwavering. Watch me. And that's when the sirens wailed outside. Daniel was arrested that night, fraud, identity theft, bigamy. There was more than enough to bring him down. As for his parents, their estate went into foreclosure within months. Hannah and I? We went out for drinks the next day and toasted to the fact that we had burned them to the ground. Some people say revenge isn't worth it. I disagree. Sometimes, revenge is exactly what's needed.